How much do you value your own life? It sounds like a deeply personal, emotional question, but in reality, it is also one of the most important economic questions ever asked, because in today's world, your time, attention, and decisions are constantly being measured, priced, and traded in ways you may not even realize. And this is where the story of clickbait begins, because every time you see a headline that makes you curious, shocked, or emotional, and you decide to click on it, you are not just consuming content, you are participating in a massive global system where your attention is being bought and sold. And to understand how this works, we need to shift our perspective from thinking of the internet as a place of free content to understanding it as an economy where attention is the currency. And just like any economy, there are incentives, competition, and strategies designed to extract as much value as possible. And in this case, the value comes from you because platforms generate revenue, primarily through advertising, which means the more time you spend on their platform, the more ads you see, and the more money they make, and this creates a powerful incentive to keep you engaged for as long as possible. And this is where clickbait becomes one of the most effective tools, because it is specifically designed to capture your attention quickly by triggering psychological responses such as curiosity, fear, excitement, or surprise, which increases the likelihood that you will click. And once you click, you are drawn into a cycle of content consumption, where each piece of content leads to another, keeping you on the platform longer. And while this may seem harmless on an individual level, the scale of this system is enormous, because billions of people around the world are spending hours every day interacting with digital content, and a significant portion of that time is influenced by clickbait. And this is where the economic cost begins to emerge, because time is one of the most valuable resources in any economy, and when it is spent on low-value or misleading content, it represents an opportunity cost, where that time could have been used for productive activities such as work, education, skill development, or meaningful social interaction. And when this happens at scale across millions or even billions of people, it can have a measurable impact on overall productivity, economic output, and societal progress. And at the same time, businesses are also affected because in an environment saturated with clickbait, it becomes more difficult to capture genuine attention and build trust with consumers, which reduces the effectiveness of marketing efforts and increases the cost of acquiring customers. And this leads to inefficiencies in the allocation of resources as companies spend more money trying to compete for attention without necessarily delivering better value. And this creates a situation where the economy becomes less efficient, as more resources are directed towards capturing attention rather than creating meaningful products or services. And this is further complicated by the fact that clickbait often prioritizes engagement over accuracy, which can lead to the spread of misinformation and low-quality content. And this has broader implications because people rely on information to make decisions about everything from investments to health to career choices. And when that information is distorted, it can lead to poor decisions that have real economic consequences. And this creates a feedback loop where low-quality content generates high engagement, which generates revenue, which encourages more low-quality content, further degrading the information ecosystem. And as this cycle continues, it can erode trust in media platforms and institutions, which is a critical component of a functioning economy, because trust reduces transaction costs, facilitates cooperation, and supports long-term growth. And when trust declines, it increases uncertainty, reduces confidence, and can slow down economic activity. And this is where the hidden cost of clickbait extends beyond wasted time and into the fundamental structure of the economy itself. And this raises a critical question: how much is this actually costing? And while it is difficult to assign a precise number, the scale of global internet usage suggests that even small inefficiencies multiplied across billions of users can result in massive economic losses. And this is why understanding the true cost of clickbait is not just about improving user experience, but about recognizing how digital systems shape economic behavior, resource allocation, and long-term growth, and as the attention economy continues to expand, the incentives driving clickbait are unlikely to disappear, which means addressing this issue will require changes at multiple levels, including user awareness, platform design, business models, and regulatory frameworks. And this is where the real story begins. But if we really want to understand the true cost of clickbait, we need to try and quantify it. Because once you start putting numbers on attention, the scale of the problem becomes almost unbelievable. Because imagine this, the average person spends several hours a day online, and even if a small portion of that time is spent on low-value clickbait content, say just 30 minutes a day, that may not seem like much, but when you multiply that across billions of people, the numbers quickly explode into something massive. Because if 1 billion people waste 30 minutes a day, that equals 500 million hours lost every single day. And when you extend that across a full year, it becomes over 180 billion hours of human time spent on content that often provides little to no real value. And now, if we try to assign even a modest economic value to that time, based on average global productivity or wages, the cost can easily reach into the trillions of dollars annually. And this is where the concept of opportunity cost becomes critical, because this is not just about wasted time, it is about lost potential productivity, lost innovation, and lost value creation, because every hour spent consuming low-quality content is an hour not spent building skills, working on meaningful tasks, or contributing to economic output, and this hidden cost is not directly visible in traditional economic metrics, but it affects everything from workplace efficiency to long-term growth. And at the same time, businesses are also paying a price, because in an environment dominated by clickbait, the cost of capturing attention increases significantly, which means companies must spend more on advertising, marketing, and content creation just to compete for visibility, and this reduces return on investment and creates inefficiencies in how resources are allocated across the economy. And instead of focusing purely on creating better products or services, companies are forced to invest heavily in capturing and retaining attention, which shifts the focus from value creation to attention extraction. And this has long-term consequences, because it can slow down innovation and reduce overall economic efficiency. And another major cost comes from the impact on decision-making, because clickbait often prioritizes engagement over accuracy, which can lead to the spread of misinformation or incomplete information. And when individuals make decisions based on poor quality information, it can result in financial losses, bad investments, and suboptimal choices that collectively impact economic outcomes. And this is particularly significant in areas like finance, health, and education, where accurate information is critical for making informed decisions. And as misinformation spreads, it can create uncertainty, distort markets, and reduce trust, which further increases economic friction. And at the same time, the constant exposure to clickbait can also affect human behavior and attention spans, making it more difficult for people to focus on complex tasks or engage with high-quality content, which can reduce productivity and learning efficiency over time. And this is where the cost becomes not just economic, but also cognitive, as the quality of attention itself declines. And this has implications for everything from education systems to workplace performance and long-term human capital development. And as these effects accumulate, the overall impact on the economy becomes more significant, because productivity growth, which is one of the key drivers of economic progress, may begin to slow down, and this can affect long-term growth rates, living standards, and overall prosperity. And this is why some economists argue that the attention economy, while highly profitable for certain platforms, may have hidden costs that are not fully captured in traditional measures of economic performance. And this brings us back to the original question: how much does clickbait cost the global economy? And while it is difficult to calculate an exact figure, the combination of lost time, reduced productivity, inefficient resource allocation, and poor decision-making suggests that the cost is not just significant, but potentially enormous, reaching into trillions of dollars when considered at a global scale. And this raises an important question about the future, because if the current system continues to prioritize attention, overvalue, these costs may continue to grow and impact long-term economic outcomes. And this is where change becomes necessary, not just at the individual level, where people become more aware of how they spend their time, but also at the platform and policy level, where incentives can be adjusted to promote higher quality content, transparency, and better alignment between user value and business models. And ultimately, the story of clickbait is not just about misleading headlines or wasted time. It is about how modern economies are increasingly shaped by attention, and how the way we choose to allocate that attention can have far-reaching consequences for productivity growth and overall economic well-being. And in a world where your attention is constantly being competed for, the real question is not just how Much clickbait costs the economy, but how much your attention is truly worth, and whether you are spending it in a way that creates value or simply giving it away for free.